Hey everyone, welcome to my review of the NeoAir UberLite inflatable sleeping pad made by Therm-a-Rest. I got my hands on this pad when it was first released a year ago in February 2019. Long-term durability testing is a critical input into my gear reviews, so I hope you enjoy. For those who are new to the channel, Hiking Nerd is about thoroughly field testing gear and sharing ideas to inspire your next adventure. We get pretty in-depth here, so if that's what you're looking for, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Thanks to your comments, I'll continue to present with imperial units, but we'll put the metric equivalents up on the screen. Okay, let's get into this review now. The UberLite is the lightest inflatable pad in the NeoAir series, weighing in at 8.8 ounces for the regular mummy pad with a stuff sack. Without the stuff sack, it weighs 8.5 ounces. The standard mummy version that I'm reviewing is 72 inches long, 20 inches wide, and 2.5 inches thick when inflated. These are the same dimensions as the NeoAir X-Lite and X-Therm sleeping pads. The UberLite comes in two additional sizes, a shorter version that's 47 inches long, and a large version that's 77 inches long and 25 inches wide. This pretty incredible weight savings has been achieved through the use of a 15D nylon fabric, which is similar in weight and thickness to the rainfly of many ultralight backpacking tents. I mean, your down jacket might even be made with a higher denier nylon. By comparison, the X-Lite uses a 30D nylon fabric on the top and bottom, while the X-Therm uses a 30D fabric on the top and a 70D nylon fabric on the bottom. The NeoAir UberLite has an R value of 2.3 based on the 2020 ASTM testing standard. A quick note about R value though. In 2020, the ASTM testing standard was updated, and most sleeping pads now have a higher R value than they used to have pre-2020 for the same pad. When I first started testing this pad upon release in 2019, it was rated at an R value of 2.0. The UberLite can be inflated with a stuff sack or by mouth. It takes me 20 to 22 breaths to fully inflate the UberLite, but of course this will vary from person to person. Because of the thin fabric, you'll be able to see the condensation that forms inside your pad, as well as any potential gunk buildup. The MSRP for the UberLite is $195 US for the regular size at the time of this video. This is significantly more expensive than other pads of similar warmth, though none can compare in terms of weight. Like I do in my other reviews, I'm going to withhold any judgment on price here. Instead, I leave it up to you to decide if this is worth your money. Alright, let's talk pros and cons, and then I'll give you some helpful tips. There are 4 things I especially like about this pad. Number 1 is warmth to weight. Now, I've been a big fan of NeoAir inflatable pads over the years. Their warmth to weight is unparalleled because of their triangular core matrix construction and thermocapture reflective coating. While the UberLite is the lightest full-size inflatable pad on the market today, it's also been able to achieve this with an R value of 2.3. There are many pads that are heavier and less insulating on the market today. Number 2 is packed size. This pad is tiny when you pack it up. It is the same size as a can of soda and disappears into your pack. If volume is at a premium, you might not mind the extra effort required to roll it up into such a small package. With the X-Lite and X-Therm, most people typically fold it into thirds lengthwise and then roll it up. With the UberLite, it will only fit into the stuff sack if you fold it twice lengthwise and then roll it up, though you can ditch the stuff sack and keep it rolled with a rubber band if you prefer. Number 3 is comfort. If you like Therm-a-Rest pads in general, you'll like this one. It has the same design as the X-Therm and X-Lite and works great for all types of sleepers. The face fabric does feel softer than the X-Therm due to the lower denier fabric, though this has the consequence of sagging more when pressure is applied. And the 4th and final thing that I actually like about the UberLite is the durability.
Oh, it's scraping!
I mean, of course, the UberLite is not meant to be as durable as pads made with a thicker fabric. However, I've been impressed with its abrasion resistance because when you feel this pad by hand, the fabric just seems too fragile to withstand any abuse. I've done some fun testing by repeatedly scratching it on rocks while floating down a stream. You can actually see the marks left by the rocks here. But surprisingly, I didn't get any punctures. Actually, I've probably spent too much time floating around on this pad. However, there are 4 things that could be improved with the UberLite. Number 1 is slipperiness. The UberLite is more slippery than any other pad I've tried. One workaround is to put a strip of seam sealer on the bottom of the pad, but not everyone wants to modify their gear. It would have been nice if Therm-a-Rest came up with a solution. I mean, does anyone really want to be on this kind of a slip and slide after a long day of hiking? Number 2 is noise. Compared to the X-Therm and X-Lite, which have layers of metallized film to improve the R value, the UberLite sounds less crinkly than those pads. Instead, it sounds more plasticky, with a tiny bit of that sound you get when you rub a balloon. I sleep with earplugs, so I don't notice, but I could see this being annoying for some. You can't have it all, unfortunately. Number 3 is deflation. The UberLite requires more work than other inflatable pads to deflate and pack up. Remember how I said in my review of the X-Therm that I wanted to push companies like Therm-a-Rest to improve their inflation and deflation valves? Well, Therm-a-Rest debuted a wing lock valve in their 2020 line to improve this. It won't actually change how many breaths it will take to inflate the UberLite, but should decrease deflation time. I haven't tested this new valve yet because this feature alone hasn't been significant enough for me to get another pad. In the meantime, my tip is to unscrew the valve when you wake up so that as the pad deflates, you'll gradually get colder and decide that it's time to get out of bed. The fourth and final con that I have is about sizing. Now, this is not specific to the UberLite itself, but rather a gripe I have at the industry standard for a regular sized sleeping pad. As someone who is 5 foot 9 inches tall and 155 pounds, it would be nice if I could fit my whole body on the pad while lying on my back. Unfortunately, the 20-inch width is just too narrow for my elbows to stay on the pad. I will usually clasp my fingers together on the pad, lie on my hands, or turn to sleep on my side. Now, the wide and long version is available, but I've got to imagine that bigger and taller folks will all suffer the same issue on the large pad. I would love it if Therm-a-Rest offered a 25-inch wide version that measured 72 inches long. I've been using the UberLite for the past year in 3-season conditions with air temperatures generally above freezing and never on snow. It should be noted that how warm you feel on your sleeping pad is less about air temperature and more about ground composition and ground temperature. But I'll talk about the air temperature range that I've used it in because that's more easily measured. On the low end of the temperature range, I used the UberLite for multiple sub-freezing nights at around 16 degrees Fahrenheit while doing a late season hike of the Yosemite High Route. If you haven't seen this video yet, I've linked it in the description below. 16 degrees Fahrenheit was definitely at the very limits of this pad's comfort. Most people have only tested this pad down to freezing, and honestly, you probably don't want to go much colder than that. If you're thinking about buying this pad, let me give you 3 quick tips. My first tip, you'll want to have some extra margin between your sleeping bag rating and the temperatures you expect to encounter. This is because sleeping bag EN temperature ratings are based on testing with a more insulated sleeping pad. It's hard to quantify how much additional sleeping bag warmth you need to make up for a lower R value pad, because heat loss to the air and to the ground primarily occur through different transfer mechanisms. Anecdotally, if I'm using the UberLite and X-Therm on hard-packed soil without snow, I find that the X-Therm gives me about at least 10 degrees Fahrenheit of additional warmth. My second tip, if you're camping at cold temperatures, say close to freezing, you'll want to blow up your pad, let it sit until it reaches ambient temperature, and then top it off right before you go to bed. The reason for doing this is to prevent your pad from going soft in the middle of the night. As you sleep, the warm air and moisture that you blew into the pad will equilibrate to the cold surrounding and the volume will decrease noticeably. Most people I've spoken to who experience a slightly deflating pad overnight attribute it to a slow leak, but more often than not, they had inflated the pad only once before bed on a cold night. If I use a stuff sack to inflate the pad, then this becomes less of an issue, but I don't typically carry this with me on fast and light missions. My third and final tip, carry the repair kit, or tenacious tape, which is my preferred method. This is generally just good practice with inflatable pads, but it's more likely to be necessary with this pad. To mitigate a catastrophic blowout, you should practice good campsite selection and take care to remove some obvious and sharp debris from the ground. I found that a ground sheet or a tent floor really helped to minimize puncture risk. So after all that, should you buy this pad? Well, if you're someone who is really counting the grams and obsesses over keeping your gear clean and damage-free, then the Therm-a-Rest NeoAir UberLite could be the right pad for your 2 to 3 season adventures. If pack space is really at a premium, like when you're bikepacking, this pad is a game changer. But you should ask yourself, do I need to save every gram or would I rather carry a little more weight for a warmer pad and some peace of mind? If the latter, check out my review of the NeoAir X-Therm, which at this point is going on 3 years and is one of my top recommended pieces of gear. Was this review helpful? Let me know by hitting the like button or leaving a comment down below. See you in the next video.